It's the Rob Carson Show. Are you ready to be Podsmacked? Now, here's Rob Carson.
All right, I do believe we are finally live. Hello and welcome to the radio program. Going to have some fun tonight, guys. Got a lot of stuff to get to on the inauguration, on the weekend's events, and all of that stuff. I want to thank you for joining me tonight. Last few days have been a lot of fun, and I've had the chance to meet and interact with new people who are trying out the show on the podcast. Those who don't know what the show's all about, who the hell is this Rob Carson guy? Also, I might add, just people in Kansas City who I entertain on my radio program who are going, whoa, there you are. Okay. You didn't have to fade into history. You're still there. And I am still here. So, and we're trying some new stuff, and I'm learning a lot. Most importantly, guys, I'm trying to provide a product that is uniquely entertaining. We're going to add some more to the show as it progresses. That includes guests, among other things. So, anyway, thank you for joining me. Make sure to friend us Facebook at Rob Carson Show. If you'd like to, I'd love to get a bunch of people signed up on Patreon, which is a website that you can donate like $1 a month. And it's not like, it's not like a donation. I really like the show, so I'm going to pay $1 a month to get it and support this guy on the web and on video. So I would greatly appreciate if you do that. If you can. I realize sometimes things are a little bit tough with regard to, finances and whatnot. But anyway, glad to have you here, guys. So if you'd like to message me while the show is going on, I would love to hear from you. Just write me a message. I'm going to go ahead and start with a message of my own to you. Hold on one second. Pardon me. Hi. Okay, hold on. Hi. Write me. Okay. Now we're going to move on to some other stuff. We've got a lot of audio to get to. We've got a lot of stories to get to. Very shortly, I want to get into the last 48 hours with regard to the Women's March in D.C., because I was savaged on the web for criticizing this pointless and vulgar movement. And I'm not backing down, even though I have some very dear friends who are very upset at me that I would say that this vulgar, vile movement in Washington, D.C. did not represent all women. And I'll share the details on that very shortly. I'm sure I was unfriended by some folks. Let me just put it that way. But let's move on to some other things first. How sucky is the Super Bowl going to get? I mean, come on. What the hell? Can we get some fresh damn teams in here? I mean, I like the Falcons, I guess. I don't know. Patriots are set to make history, the most Super Bowls. But, honestly, I'm freaking done with it. And listen, it's not about Tom Brady. I like Tom Brady. People don't like Tom Brady. A couple of reasons why. He's an incredibly gifted, good-looking dude with a cleft chin and a freaking supermodel for a wife. People hate him for that because he's perfect, because he's Johnny Unitas 2017 version. And I don't hate him. I just would like to see, a little more variety when it comes to who the hell we have in the frickin' Super Bowl. The Bears. When was the last time the Bears won the Super Bowl? Well, the Super Bowl were they in what, at 85? Was that it? How about the Cardinals? How about the whatever the hell? How about the Raiders? How about the Chiefs? I'm tired of hearing the same damn teams in the Super Bowl. So we've got a Super Bowl coming up that I really could give a rat's ass about, to be quite honest. I really could give a rat's behind about it. I don't care about either one of these teams. If I were going to choose who I would prefer to win, I guess it would be the Falcons. Here's a little snapshot of their win yesterday.
And that's it. The Atlanta Falcons, NFC champions, on to Super Bowl 51.
We knew going against Green Bay and going against...
Okay, so they won yesterday. Yippee skippy, yeehaw. We're so happy. Obviously, the Patriots won in another lopsided victory over Pittsburgh yesterday. And I got to tell you, I'm just not very excited about it. If you'd like to comment on the show, just go ahead and write me, okay? And message me, and I will share details on your messages, among other things. Now, we have a bunch of stuff we want to get to on the show. The Women's March in D.C., Sean Spicer, the new press secretary for the president, Donald Trump, by the way, I guess we did a podcast on Saturday, so he was officially the president Saturday. But I don't know. There's been a lot of things happening. Sean Spicer did start as the press secretary. He did a presser on Saturday, and he was very combative. He was talking about the estimation of the crowds at the inauguration on Friday. Now, truth be told, several media outlets released photos of the inauguration versus Barack Obama's inauguration in 2009. They used photos of Donald Trump's inauguration 3 hours before he did his speech, and that was false. That was bullcrap. It was bullcrap. I know many of you feel like Donald Trump's inauguration was much smaller. However, with regard to viewership, it was the second highest viewed inauguration in the history of the country. The one that beat it was Barack Obama's in 2009. All right? So 36 million people watched the thing on television and online. It was a big deal. And also, I want to mention that 100,000 people more than 2012 rode the D.C. Metro on Inauguration Day. All right? So there was a large number of people who rode the Metro downtown. So who knows? The National Park Police cannot release official numbers on it, so you're not going to hear from it. As far as the new White House press secretary arguing about it, I think it's bullcrap, and I don't care. I don't care. Let's move on to the important stuff here. There are people who are going to say the inauguration was much less interesting. Nobody showed up, and there are people going to say, no, it was lied about. So let's move on. I realize that there's a good deal of unpopularity with Donald Trump and what he is. Some people don't like him, some people love him. But I think that there are people who are actively working against him. But let's move on from the inauguration. Can we just move on from the inauguration? Let's talk a little bit about the new press secretary as my dogs bark in the background. Got a new press secretary. This guy's a pretty interesting cat. And had his first press, I guess. It really wasn't a press conference. It was more of just a statement. Sean Spicer on Saturday, and he argued about the crowds with regard to the inauguration. Here's a little bit from him on Saturday, I guess.
Two instances yesterday stand out. One was a particularly egregious example in which a reporter falsely tweeted out that the bust of Martin Luther King Jr. had been removed from the Oval Office.
Now, that is true. That is true, and it was false.
After it was pointed out that this was just plain wrong, the reporter casually reported and tweeted out and tried to claim that a Secret Service agent must have just been standing in front of it. This was irresponsible and reckless. Secondly, photographs of the inaugural proceedings were intentionally framed in a way, in one particular tweet, to minimize the enormous support that had gathered on the National Mall. This was the first time in our nation's history that floor coverings have been used to protect the grass in the mall. That had the effect of highlighting any areas where people were not standing, while in years past, the grass eliminated this visual. This was also the first time that fencing and magnetometers went as far back on the wall, preventing hundreds of thousands of people from being able to access the mall as quickly as they had in inaugurations past. Inaccurate numbers involving crowd size were also tweeted. No one had numbers because the National Park Service, which controls the National Mall, does not put any out. By the way, this applies to any attempts to try to count the number of protesters today in the same fashion. We do know a few things, so let's go through the facts.
Okay.
We know that from the platform where the president was sworn in to 4th Street holds about 200.
Okay, I'm not going to get all the numbers here. But I think that there's some people who are trying to make the inauguration smaller, and there are some people who are trying to make it bigger. It obviously was seen by a lot of people. There was great interest in it. The fact that the metro in D.C. had 100,000 more passengers should say something. Either way, if somebody's lying about it on one side or the other, it's shameful and it's stupid. Here's a little more from Sean Spicer on Saturday.
This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period.
Okay, that's not true. I'll just go ahead and call them out and say, not true.
Both in person and around the globe. Even the New York Times printed a photograph showing that a misrepresentation of the crowd in the original tweet in their paper, which showed the full extent of the support, depth, and crowd and intensity that existed. These attempts to lessen the enthusiasm of the inauguration are shameful and wrong. The president was also at the Central, as you know, the president was at the Central Intelligence Agency today and greeted by a raucous overflow crowd of some 400 plus CIA employees.
Okay, I realize that when it comes to the media, why the Trump administration would be a little bit more sensitive about ill treatment by the media. And by the way, Seth, welcome to the show. Seth Holmes, thank you so much for joining. But at the same time, we're going to have to do things more gracefully. We're going to have to out-finesse them. Because lies are going to be told. Lies are going to be told. But we're going to have to out-finesse them. That's it. We're going to have to do it with style. We're going to have to do it with panache. Sean Spicer is a little, got a little horny puppy syndrome going here. I don't blame him because he's right. He's right. But we need to do it with style, panache, and a wink and a nod. Seth says, I could see them being said about the lie that the MLK bust, but they're going to have to grow a thicker skin. Yeah, the MLK bust being removed from the Oval Office was a lie. It was a load of crap. It was a attempt by the media to paint Donald Trump as a racist. Now, the positive is he got the bust of Winston Churchill back from the British Embassy. But he did not remove the Martin Luther King bust. That's a narrative that you're trying to paint. And a lot of news media are trying to paint the Trump administration as whatever and whatever. And they're going to have to fight back. Bush administration didn't do it. Bush administration did not do it. This administration is going to have to, and I'm glad, because I love it when they give the media what for. Apparently, the new White House begins with an English-only website. All right, so whitehouse.gov. Originally, I guess President Obama made Spanish the primary language on the website, or at least equal with English. And the new White House Gov has English-only content. Now, Sean Spicer was asked about this, and I'll give you my thoughts on that in just a second. But he was asked about why it was only English only, and here is what Sean Spicer had to say about that.
When he says that he would work through Congress to get a special something, we don't know what it is, for DACA recipients. And when can we expect that to happen? And also, when can we expect the White House Spanish site to be back up?
Okay, two questions. Let me start with the latter first. As you know, we hit the ground running on day one. There was a lot to do, and we had done a lot of work on the website to make sure that we were prepared to get as much information up as fast as possible. We are continuing to build out the website, both in the issue areas, and then that area. But we've got the IT folks working overtime right now to continue to get all of that up to speed. And trust me, it's just going to take a little bit more time, but we're working piece by piece to get that done.
All right, so here's the deal. He is saying basically that they are redoing the website and that they're not getting rid of Spanish. Some people in the media are saying that they're trying to get rid of Spanish. I will tell you, as much as this will make you mad, I think that they should get rid of Spanish. They should get rid of any language other than English on the whitehouse.gov website. There are two things that bring us together as a country: citizenship and language. Citizenship and language. That's it. All right? Citizenship means a commitment to being a citizen of the United States of America. Language is a unifying ability to be able to communicate cross-culturally. All right? Now, you're saying, yeah, but businesses like banks and ATMs, they have like 10 different languages on their ATM. That's good business. That's good business for a private industry. You go and you want to withdraw some money, Cantonese, Chinese, and you know that 8% of your audience is that, then cool. Not the same with government. It is not the same with government. We have to have a unifying authority. We have to have some sort of ability to bring us all together so we assimilate into the culture. The main two things with regard to that are, what did I just say? Citizenship and language. That's it. Learn the language. They do it in France. They do it in Mexico. They do it in all sorts of countries. Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq. You better know the national language. And I think that it is a sign of respect. If you are going to be assimilated into that country, then you have got to become a part of it. That's just it. So I'm a big believer in that. Okay, let's move on to some other stuff. There's, and I'm going to get into some non-political stuff here very shortly. And again, I'd love to hear your comments, guys. I know we have a small audience, but it is growing. And if you would, by the way, I just want to add, if you would share it with people on Facebook or whatever social media, I would greatly appreciate it. Apparently, this bat crap crazy woman got on a plane, elderly woman, and passengers cheered as she threw this woman off. Scott Kateski. He was in a window seat, and there was a woman who sat next to him who was an anti-Trump supporter, all right? And this guy wasn't trying to stir anything up, but this woman just went batshit crazy on him. And I'm going to play a little bit of the audio on this, and this is what happens with a lot of people. I've never seen any video of somebody going after an Obama supporter, calling them whatever. I've never seen that with a Hillary supporter, whatever. But I'm seeing a lot of this from Trump supporters who are little bat guano crazy. Here is a woman going after this guy for apparently, I don't know how she discovered he was a Trump supporter, if he was wearing a hat or whatever, and her being summarily exited from the plane.
She has called me names and insulted me just for sitting down in the seat, saying that I came here to celebrate today.
Is there going to be a problem?
I would like for him to change seats with someone.
No, I'm going to get somebody. Well, you don't have that right. So I will get somebody to come and talk.
You pretend you have the moral high ground, but you put that man's finger on the nuclear button.
Okay, here she is. She's saying, you pretend to have the moral high ground, yet you put that man's finger on the nuclear button.
That man doesn't believe in climate change. Do you believe in gravity? Did you know gravity is just a theory?
She's saying that you don't believe in gravity? Do you know gravity is just a theory?
Gravity is
Right.
okay. We're gonna have to take you home tonight. We're gonna have to take you home tonight right there.
Man, we're waiting on you.
And now they're going to kick her off. There you go. Bye-bye, 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 bye-bye. You know what? If you're sitting next to somebody on a plane, who cares? Who cares what you think? Honestly, let it go. Let it go. We all, and you know, I had a conversation today with a friend of mine from college named Randy, and he was calling me out for a number of things. He's a major, whatever Hillary anti-Trump guy, and I said, we're going to agree to disagree on this because I'm not going to be able to convince you. You're not going to be able to convince me. But at the same time, I have to point out some things that are real and that are true. On my other website or on my other Facebook page that I won't get into right now because I don't want to confuse you. With regard to the Women's March and the inauguration, some people got very vitriolic and mean with me. And these are good friends of mine. And it's very disappointing. Hello, Sam. Welcome to the podcast. It's very disappointing to me because I have expressed my opinions about this Women's March on Saturday, which was an unfocused, vulgar, sickening event. Because I said that, and because I said it wasn't about women everywhere. And if you watch this Saturday event in Washington, D.C., this Women's March, and you saw idiots like Madonna, and you saw idiots like Ashley Judd, I would be, if I were a leftist, I would be embarrassed because I wouldn't want my daughter there. As Ashley Judd spewed just vulgarity and stupidity. Here's a little bit from Ashley Judd on Saturday.
I am a nasty woman.
Yeah.
I'm not as nasty as a man who looks like he bathes in Cheeto dust.
There you go.
A man whose words are a diss track to America. Electoral college sanctioned.
God, open my poetry sucks.
Hate speech contaminating this national anthem. I'm not as nasty as Confederate flags being tattooed across my city. Maybe the South actually is gonna rise again. Maybe.
Now, she is quoting from a woman named Nina Donovan. She's a 19-year-old. And she wrote this, and I'm a writer. I write comedy. I'm a pretty good writer. She writes like a batshit crazy 19-year-old bipolar, whatever the hell. She writes for effect. She knew this was going to stir this up, and she said some things during this idiotic, nasty woman poem that is ill thought, is meant only to get an effect. I understand this writing. I've seen it. I was a younger person at one time. I was 19 years at one time. Clueless, by the way. I'm going to read a little bit more from this. Nina Donovan, 29-year-old, probably unhinged and unmedicated. Here's a little more from Ashley Judd, and I'll share some more from Nina Donovan's nasty woman poem.
For some, it never really fell. I am a nasty woman.
Yeah, whatever. You're quoting a 19-year-old college student who says things like slavery has been reinterpreted into the prison system. Blacks are still in shackles and graves just for being black in front of people who see melanin as animal skin. Unhinged, batshit crazy, stupid. Not as nasty as your daughter being your favorite sex symbol, talking about Donald Trump like wet dreams infused with your own genes. But I'm a nasty woman. Okay, saying that Donald Trump has wet dreams about his daughter is sickening. Goes on to say, but I'm nasty like the battles women fought to keep me in the voting booth. Nasty like the fight to close the wage gap. Illegal to not pay women less. Lily Ledbetter. Barack Obama signed it. You don't believe me? Find out what a male cohort in your position is making and sue the asses off the company that you work for. Give me a break. It's illegal. And the voting thing was solved like 100 years ago. See, even when women go to high-paying careers, their wages are still cut with blades sharpened by testosterone. This is just inflammatory. It's bad writing. It's cartoonish. It's teenage writing. We are here to be nasty like bloodstains, bed sheets. In case you forgot, women can't choose when or if they get their periods. Trust me, if we could, we would. Great. Biology, you were born into it. Get used to it. There's a lot of things associated with a man, but not that pleasant. Then there are some very pleasant things, actually. And then she goes on to say, why are tampons and pads still taxed when Viagra and Rogaine isn't? Rogaine's taxed. Trust me on this. I use it right here. I'm nasty like red, white, and blue bruises. So stupid. Nasty like Elizabeth, Amelia, Rosa, Condoleezza. So stupid. And grabbing our P words, and our P words aren't for grabbing. Okay. You know what? This is great. This is great. Donald Trump said some things on a bus that were illegally recorded. and they were disgusting. Men and women talk like that, by the way. Men and women talk about getting a piece of ass every once in a while. Bill Clinton is the only person who actually, well, at least politically that we know of with regard to this election, was the man who would take women to his hotel room and sexually assault them, or even border on rape them. But nobody notices that, and nobody marched against that because he's pro-abortion. He's a Democrat and he's pro-abortion. That's what that's all about. That's what that's all about. I wanted to play something for you because I think it's kind of funny. It's not going to all be politics tonight, by the way. It's not going to be all politics. But you look at what happened this weekend with Donald Trump. Donald Trump was inaugurated on Friday, and he had a chance to speak and all that stuff, and has just been eaten alive ever since. I want to play something, and listen, even for the people who disagree with it, I want you to listen to the difference between the media now, what you heard all weekend with regard to Donald Trump. You heard people compare his speech. Chris Matthews said it was Hitlerian. You heard Rachel Maddow saying that it was dark and all this. And this is a little montage. And listen, if you're eating something viscous, or if you've eaten something viscous like yogurt, get a trash can near you because you're going to get sick to your stomach. Here's a little bit of the media fawning in 2009. This is spectacular over Obama.
Well, Charlie, we know that wind can make a cold day feel colder, but can national pride make a freezing day feel warmer? It seems to be the case, because regardless of the final crowd number estimates, never have so many people shivered so long with such joy. From above, even the seagulls must have been awed by the blanket of humanity.
Yes.
What a day it was. It may take days or years to really absorb the significance of what happened to America today. When he finally emerged, he seemed, even in this throng, so solitary, somber, perhaps already feeling the weight of the world, even before he was transformed into the leader of the free world. And the mass flickering of cell phone cameras on the mall seemed like stars shining back at him.
In the end, though, it really didn't matter where you were, as long as you weren't alone.
Listen to the music, too. Oh, my God.
Just ordinary street corners, like this one here in Chicago, fell silent, almost becoming a political cathedral of sorts. And almost everyone was making that mental scrapbook, noting the time and place where they were on this day.
Unbelievable. It gets worse.
And perhaps shared a collective tear.
Politics and patriotism and the presidency. It is the place where the secular and the religious merge.
Oh, here we go.
And one of the sacraments of our national religion is the inauguration. So it was that as many as 2 million pilgrims made their way to Washington and the Mall to witness this most sacred event.
Okay, so, wow. So the inauguration in 2009 of Barack Obama was sacred. The pilgrims, people who went to the inauguration were pilgrims and a sacred occasion. Honestly, I don't even know where to start. Now, you've got Donald Trump. He had 37 million people watch the inauguration, which is the second largest audience on television of all time. We know that 100,000 people more than Barack Obama in 2012, pardon me, rode the D.C. Metro. We know that some media organizations compared photos 3 hours before Donald Trump's inaugural address and Barack Obama's inaugural address in 2009 while he was doing it. Okay, we know that. And I saw another photo today that was just remarkable that showed, I can't really explain this, the Capitol divided 2009, 2016, and they moved it over. So the 2016 was just outside of the National Mall to compare it. So there's some bull crap going on. I'm not saying that this was the most highly, populated inauguration since whatever. But at the same time, there's a lot of crap going on. There's just a lot of crap going on. By the way, Madonna dropped a bunch of F-bombs on Saturday during the Women's March. We saw some embarrassing stuff, as we mentioned earlier, from Ashley Judd. We saw some embarrassing stuff from a bunch of celebrities that was just honestly sickening. And it doesn't represent women in the country. It doesn't represent most of the women in the country. CNN on, I guess this was Sunday, was talking about the march. And there was an analyst named Bakari Sellers on CNN. And she talked about what this march was all about. And then I'm going to get into a couple of other thoughts about the march, because the march was not a women's march. It was just a political movement. And by the way, George Soros was involved. There were 53 groups involved in this event, and George Soros was tied in with every single one of them. This was not grassroots. This was AstroTurf. Here's a little bit about an honest analyst on CNN saying what this was all about. Not exactly a movement for women.
I'm in Indiana for leadership now. But the fact is that people came out today in something that we haven't seen in this country or around this world in a very long period of time.
Okay, this was on Saturday, I guess.
This is not anti-Trump. This is pro-America.
Okay. Actually, we'll see a lot of people at the March for Life. How many show up for March for Life?
The March for Life, by the way, which has been going on for 43 years, will have about 400,000, 500,000 next weekend. So I'll meet all of you back here to have the same conversation.
Now, by the way, next weekend, every year in Washington, D.C., they do the March for Life. It is a pro-life march. Every year, as big as what happened on Saturday. Every year, sometimes bigger, rain or shine, people come to Washington, D.C. to express their opposition to abortion. And it's never covered. Never covered. This women's march was covered by everybody. And nobody noticed the idiocy of this movement with people like Cher and people like Ashley Judd and people like Scarlett Johansson and Madonna spewing profanity and vulgarity and stupidity and acting like that is normal, and most people are into that. The Pussy Hat Project. Yeah, please. Do I want my daughter, my 11-year-old daughter, to wear a pink stocking cap called the Pussy Hat Project? It's vulgar, offensive, and stupid. And how far did it get Hillary Clinton having Madonna on stage to getting elected? It won't resonate with the American people. It's not. I think most people in this country are offended by it. It's an unfocused movement with no central theme. It's a variety of different, it's a hodgepodge of organizations funded by George Soros, who came together in Washington, D.C. just because they hate the fact that Donald Trump got elected.
Next weekend, because that is ignored on a regular basis. This is not new. I welcome it, by the way. I believe in the First Amendment. Anytime women and men get together and show their beliefs and strongly support their candidates or whatever that is, that's fantastic. It's good for America, but this was not a women's
And also,
march.
you know what, I want to say also to Bakari, you know,
pro-life women were told need not apply. We were not welcomed here. Kellyanne Conway was not invited to speak at this march. Concerned Women for America was not welcome. Why are you laughing? It's a women's march. We should have been included. We are not. And so therefore, women are not monolithic. This was the same group of progressives who have been all along fighting against Donald Trump and what conservative values. They're welcome to do it, but let's not misname it.
We can actually cast this aside. We can castigate it as if it's something that's not.
No, I say it's great.
It's fine. I mean, we're gonna have 400,000 people who march here who pro-life, and I appreciate that.
Penny's point is it shouldn't have been called a women's march. I mean, it seems like you're arguing past each other. Do you have any issue with what it was billed as?
Not at all.
Okay.
I mean, listen, the women are the backbone of this country.
Okay. So this was a march inspired by George Soros and other organizations that have been antagonizing, have been hiring people to go to Trump rallies for the last year. And now it's being billed as a women's march. It doesn't represent my wife or my daughter. It doesn't represent my mother. It doesn't represent a lot of women in my life. But to claim that it does is bullcrap. It's bullcrap. All right? Kellyanne Conway was on talking about the Women's March. I believe this was on NBC. And she looked at it, and I look at it as well, as a failed opportunity. Because nobody in this march approached the president, her, or anyone else about their grievances. They just on the 8th of November decided they were going to march against Donald Trump.
They talking about the millions of women who live in poverty, who don't have health care after 8 years of
What did the president
Obama.
think of that march?
This is on ABC with George Stephanopoulos.
Discussed it with him briefly. We certainly respect people's First Amendment rights, but I frankly didn't see the point. I mean, you have a day after he's uplifting and unifying, and you have folks here being on a diatribe where I think they could have requested a dialogue. Nobody called me and said, hey, could we have a dialogue? And you have celebrities from...
Because they never gave her or the new president a chance. On the 8th of November, they already had the organizations ready to go after this president. Right now, there is a movement to impeach the president already, right? So there was never any intention of presenting grievances, changing minds. This is only about basically saying that this presidency is not legitimate.
On the podium, using profanity-laced insults. You have a very prominent singer who's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, not going over to a women's shelter here in D.C. to write a check, but instead saying that she's thought of, quote, burning down the White House.
Talking about Madonna?
Yeah, Madonna.
This is destructive.
She's walked that back, by the way.
And I read in an article or two that the Secret Service may be investigating that. But, George, we just had an election, and a lot of what I heard from this march yesterday in Washington, we heard all through the election. And that whole messaging, and their candidate Hillary Clinton lost. 29 to 30 million women voted for Donald Trump. Their voices are heard as well. They should be respected. I just thought they missed an opportunity to be about solutions and to really fight for those millions of women whose kids are trapped in failing schools, who don't have access to health care, who don't have access to...
Because it's not about them. It is about a temper tantrum because Donald Trump has been elected president. That's it.
An economic, affordable life, and those are the people that we're here for: the forgotten men, the forgotten women, and their children. And I just thought it was such a contrast to have President Trump deliver an inaugural address that was so uplifting and aspirational and inclusive. And if you open your heart to patriotism, there's no room for prejudice. And then the very next day, you have these profanity-laced, threatening, vulgar comments coming from the podium. Look, the whole celebrity thing didn't work for Hillary Clinton. She tried that in her campaign and it failed. So, and the other thing I would just mention, George, is guess who was conspicuous by their absence yesterday? President Obama, Secretary Clinton. They were up on the platform applauding and embracing President Trump.
Okay, so yeah, this was not a grassroots movement. It was not organic in any way, shape, or form. It was the same people. I mean, look at the same people on the stage. Madonna was the same person on the stage. All these celebrities are the same people on stage were Hillary's campaign. Madonna, by the way, over the weekend doubled down, and I hope the Secret Service figuratively, not smacks the shit out of her. Figuratively. She tweeted and then deleted on Sunday, F Donald Trump and F the Secret Service. You may disagree with Donald Trump, but you don't say F the Secret Service. And I hope they go after her ragged ass, saggy old ass. Madonna. She was done years ago. I've been waiting forever for Madonna's star to fade. And honestly, this postmenopausal, wretched, awful, disgusting woman, I'm done with her. Bye-bye, Madonna. Bye-bye, Madonna. Bye-bye, Madonna. A couple more stories on the march in Washington. Then we're going to move some other stuff here. Katie Hopkins did a interesting piece in the UK Daily Mail, and she's not exactly terribly conservative. She said that she went to the march, and she saw a sign that said, I'm more than my vagina. Asked this woman why she was at the women's march in Washington, hadn't said it was because she wanted to show that what democracy really meant. Another white lady held up a placard reminding me of that white silence equals white consent, but Black Lives Matter. So you've got a juxtaposition of a variety of dozens and dozens of ideologies and what they wanted to appeal to. A woman pushing a stroller with her two children on board, facing down the Secret Service with a sign that said, "That's not my president." And she goes on to say that There may be some very passionate people at this, but basically it is a disjointed, unfocused movement with no common principle or no common narrative other than we hate Donald Trump. That's it. Okay. She goes on to say it is an army lacking of common purpose, lacking of common cause. Every one of them wielding a placard for a different grudge they bear. All right. So there's some of that. Many unable to give a coherent reason for being there, most at odds with the placards they carry. Many cross a woman didn't win. And a march where the meaningless drivel of the speakers was matched by the lack of a clear aim of those marching. All right. So there were a lot of people on stage shouting a lot of idiotic things, and they were meaningless. I don't doubt that there are some people who went down who are concerned about women's issues, but what is being threatened by Donald Trump? Okay. As Donald Trump said that he's going to take away the right to vote. Donald Trump said some really idiotic things on a bus that was illegally recorded with Billy Bush, was illegally recorded. He was caught in some locker room banter. He's a good friend of Bill Clinton, who used to golf with him all the time while he was president. The number one topic of conversation was the P word. He said it. And Bill Clinton is a prime example of that because that's all he's clearly after. Did you see him going after? He was watching Ivanka Trump, and they caught him. And he was he was licking his lips and looking at her, and he turned around, and Hillary was giving her the stink eye, and like she didn't expect it from him, honestly. Piers Morgan even agreed. He said, millions went around the country proudly marching to protest President Donald Trump in the hate. Love Trump's hate. The march organizers constantly reminded us it was a peaceful protest to prove that women don't need violence to make their point. Then came Madonna in her black P-word hat, and she just kept going lower. She said basically, and to our detractors that insist this march will never add up to anything, F you. She also said she's thought a lot about blowing up the White House. All right? Oh, and this is after she came out and said this is a love march and a peace march and all that crap. It's a load of shite. This is back to Piers Morgan. It is very a serious criminal offense to make a bomb threat, let alone one to the life of the president. If you or I were to say that in a public forum, then we would almost certainly be arrested, charged, and jailed. Don't believe me? Try tweeting a bomb threat or saying it as if you board a plane. You will be prosecuted, even if it's a joke. In one short, disgraceful sentence, Madonna wrecked a woman's march because she lifted the lid on the more repellent side of feminism, the vile, crude, man-hating, violent, nasty side, and it was. And honestly, if you think it's cool to wear a vagina costume or whatever, it's just vile. It's vile. The whole thing was vile. And it doesn't represent, and I'm not a prude, but it doesn't represent my daughter or my wife or my mother or my sister. Said that real feminism is not about murdering men you don't like or stripping off to make money and pretending it's about liberating women. Madonna, by the way, still doing that. At close to 60 years old, still showing her cooch. I don't want to see that, and I don't want to be too graphic about it. But honestly, you're a 57-year-old woman, and you're still showing your cooch, and you're still shaking your ass on late night television. Will you just grow the F up? Just grow the hell up. Real feminism, this is back to Piers Morgan, says about striving to be so good at what you do that your gender is irrelevant. I tell that to my daughter. You can do anything. There are many reasons why Hillary was an inept candidate, but one came from the mouth of Madeleine Albright, who urged women to vote for Hillary a few years ago, said there's a special place in hell for women who don't help each other. Albright had to say, Albright had to say, and should have said was, I became Secretary of State because I was the best candidate, not because I'm a woman. Hillary Clinton should be president because she's the best candidate, not because she's a woman. Remember that tome, that comment for Madeleine Albright? Instead, she affirmed many people's suspicions that the main reason to vote Hillary was because she was a woman and would therefore be the first female president. This didn't just annoy men, it annoyed women. Trump got 53% of the women's vote. Remember that? I don't see anything, those 53% represented in this march. This march was not about women's rights. At its core, it was about Trump hating and resentment that he won and Hillary lost. It's perfectly democratic to march and protest. It's not perfectly democratic to march and protest against the result of a free democratic election just because the man won. There's also blatant hypocrisy at play, too. If the sexual morals of a president are so important, where were the marches over Bill Clinton's treatment of a young intern, Monica Lewinsky, in the Oval Office? This is Piers Morgan. He's a total lefty. And when it comes to the moral high bar, why was Madonna allowed to offer free blowjobs to anyone who votes Hillary without censure from the sisterhood? She did that, and then Hillary Clinton invited her on stage. Or if coarse sexual language is so taboo to tell President Trump to suck D-word on Saturday, and she did, then, of course, Madonna wasn't the only celebrity to embarrass herself. Ashley Judd read a poem branding Donald Trump as the devil and Hitler, mocking his hair and complexion, cracking a crude wet dreams joke about his daughter. We heard that earlier. This march turned from a defense of women's rights into a celebration of women's wrongs, a procession of high profile, that didn't sound good, female celebrities just spewing bile. He says, ladies, I love you, but if you let the nasty women win, you lose. And that's true. There are women's issues. Listen, I want my daughter to enjoy the same possibilities as any man in the country. And a lot of things have happened in my life. Right? I was born in the 60s and I grew up in the 70s, and women didn't have the same opportunities, but things are different now. And by God, I will fight to the ends of the earth to make sure that my daughter gets the same opportunities. However, I will not let my daughter see these vile, vulgar, leftist lunatics as an example of being a woman, as an example of being an idol or whatever. This is the wrong way to go about it. And I'm against it. Sorry. Oh, by the way, feminists are really mad because Taylor Swift skipped the anti-Trump march. Sent out a message of support. Said, so much love, pride, and respect for those who marched. I'm proud of many women today. This wasn't enough. People lashed out on Twitter. One person saying, you got a bad leg or something? Why didn't you march? Another one saying, somebody said that she didn't want to alienate fans because of politics. Not a bad idea if you're Taylor Swift and you're making $150 million a year. Sorry, this election was too important to worry about her branding, according to someone. I don't know if you know this, but Trump's literally a neo-Nazi. No, he's not, or I wouldn't have voted for him, you douche. One fan urged critics to back off, arguing the singer is always criticized no matter what she does. But outraged social media users weren't buying the argument, saying F you to Taylor Swift, who's a really, really cool person, by the way. Really, really cool person she is. There was a little march here in Kansas City. I'll cover the story real quick. I'm going to move on to this other stuff. There was a little march over the weekend in Kansas City. I heard one news organization saying that it was hundreds of protesters, and then I heard somebody say that it was thousands. Here's the report from Fox 4 in Kansas City about the Women's March on Saturday.
John, you might say it was a year's worth of emotion that really boiled over for many protesters and many political observers within Kansas City's bounds. Those protesters you mentioned, they marched throughout Kansas City, starting at Liberty Memorial and making their way to City Hall, where they've been for the past couple of hours. And as they marched, they chanted, leaving little doubt as to how they felt about the newly appointed 45th President of the United States.
When immigrants' rights come under attack, what do we do? Stand up right now!
Oh, the marching.
Skies.
The Muslim community has also been attacked.
Protesters hid their faces and carried signs of contempt.
Their victories have not been your victories.
Having witnessed the inaugural ceremony making Donald J. Trump official in his new role as U.S. president.
Frustrated with the outcome of the election.
Independence resident Karen Baum says the past year was hard to take, and she can't support Trump after seeing so many controversies in his campaign.
For me, it was the divisiveness and the racist undertones and some of the misogynistic rhetoric. That'd be it.
The drumbeat of disdain is strong for St. Joe resident Daniel Ramming, who says he's also concerned about an uncertain future.
I keep hearing that President Trump has won. We need to get over it. I'm not concerned about his election. I'm concerned about where we go from here.
But not every Kansas City viewpoint is condemning of the new president. Brian Jones is one of a handful.
Well, thank God that not everybody is. Thank you so much for acknowledging that not everybody is against Trump in Kansas City. Oh, my goodness. Well, this movement, I believe, is nothing more than people who want him out of office. They want to destroy his candidacy before it began. There's selective outrage. There's no outrage against Donald Trump, or I should say against Bill Clinton. But because Donald Trump is Donald Trump, and because he is, Sam says the video is down. All right, I'm going to keep this thing going. I'm sorry. This is nothing more than an anti-Trump thing. That's all it is. Okay. All right, let's move on to some other stuff. I'm done. Fox News getting rid of some people. George Will, Stacey Dash, Republican strategist Ed Rollins. They will not be with Fox News anymore. Marvin Kalb and Cal Thomas also will not be joining the cast in the next year. Stacey Dash, eye candy, spectacular. Not terribly bright. Google image her because, damn, Stacey Dash. She was in Clueless in 1995, and that's about it. So she's being let go. She'd been on The Five a bunch of times. As far as George Will, Ed Rollins, Marvin Kalb, and Cal Thomas, nothing against them. But the last election was as much about the rejection of the establishment political class in Washington, D.C., as it was the establishment media class. A lot of people in the media who've been Republican pundits for a number of years are beginning to be rejected. Limbaugh's still very strong. Hannity's strong. Beck is slipping. And a lot of the other people who we know as Republican political pundits who did not support Donald Trump. And it's not because they didn't support Donald Trump. It's just because they kept towing that old school line. And people are done with it. So it's as much as a rejection of the Republican political class as it is the Republican media class, okay? The punditry class. I've been very lucky because I didn't get into talk radio until a few years ago. And so I feel like maybe I might have a fresher perspective to some degree. I try not to be completely politically polarizing. But I'm glad I didn't get into talk radio until I did. Okay, let's go after a Republican. How does that sound? Let's go after a Republican. There's a Republican in South Dakota, Matthew Woolman. He's 26 years old. Apparently had sexual contact with 2 interns. He's resigned and says he regrets his action. I was a 26-year-old dude. The interns were both over age 21, and the relationships were consensual. He's 26 years old. Here's the story out of Sioux Falls about this guy hooking up with some interns. He's a 26-year-old, and then I will have a couple comments on. Here it is.
I received a phone call from a fellow legislator who advised me that he was knowledgeable of some activities that were questionable in nature regarding relationship between this woman and an intern, or possibly more than one intern.
State Senator Brock Greenfield says that legislator submitted an anonymous letter to then Speaker of the House Dean Wink, outlining the possibility of some questionable conduct.
And then I believe that the allegations were credible, and that it was my recommendation that he proceed with a fact-finding mission and an investigation.
Greenfield also called Speaker Wink in 2015, alerting him to this possible problem, hoping Wink would see if there was any truth to the whispers.
Have you had relationships with interns before?
I did have relationships with the interns.
Even though Woolman has now confessed, Greenfield says he never questioned why the story didn't come out sooner.
Now, here's the deal. In South Dakota, legislative interns are a college student. Some 21 years or older. The 2 people he messed with were 21 or older. Legislative rules don't explicitly ban sexual contact or relationships between lawmakers and interns, although they do prohibit sexual harassment and call on lawmakers to maintain the highest of moral and ethical standards. I get this, okay? If you're a 50-something-year-old man in the White House and you're banging an intern, do you think you should resign? This guy resigned. He's 26 years old. He's not married. He's got a fiance, I guess. So it's not, whatever. It's not right. It's not right what he did. But necessarily, he did not have to leave. I hate defending this. I really don't like it. But there's no prohibition of this kind of relationship with a woman who is 21 years old just because she's a college student and he's 26 years old. So a far cry from a 55-year-old president banging an intern in the White House. But this guy at least had the decency to resign. All right. Before we go, I'm going to talk a little bit about Yordano Ventura. I know many of you listened to this and watched this in Kansas City, and it was a shock to all of us. I don't have an emotional connection to Yordano Ventura. I know that he was very instrumental in getting the Royals into the World Series, and it's a tragedy that a 25-year-old died. I'm going to share you some details and some audio from the Royals and others about the death of Yordano Ventura, because it was it's just awful. Just awful. But let's do some other stuff. I've got a story I want to share. This is completely off the subject. But one of the other things that I do is I do a food blog, a food podcast, and it's on Rob Carson's Table, Facebook at Rob Carson's Table. And I discovered something the other day that I had no idea. You know that drawer that you have under your stove where you put the pots and pans in it? Know what I'm talking about? You got a drawer under there. You store your pots and pans. You store whatever under there. You are doing it wrong. You don't even frickin' know what that drawer is for. That drawer is not for storing pots and pans. I'm going to share what it is coming up. I'm sorry. I find it fascinating because I do all the cooking in my family. And that drawer is not for pots and pans. If you are doing it for pots and pans, you are doing it wrong. I'll explain what it is in a minute. I like to consider myself to be I am fairly well-spoken. Not perfect, but I try to be fairly well-spoken. That said, Lucy Bella Earle from Gloucester in England has put together a list of words that are frequently misunderstood or mispronounced. Okay? And I'm going to share a couple of them with you. All right? Because there are some things that I really hate people to mispronounce. One of them is realtor. It's not realtor. It's not realtor. It's not realtor. It's realtor. Realtor. That's is. All right? It's not jeweler. It's a jeweler. A jeweler. All right? It's not jeweler. That conjures up all sorts of images about Jewish people in the diamond industry, which are stereotypical and probably true to some degree. But it's not jeweler. It's a jeweler. Jeweler. Do you understand that? Here are some of the words that are most commonly mispronounced. And this, according to this woman, and she's from Gloucester. It's not Gloucester. It's Gloucester. The 10 most mispronounced words. And I agree to some degree. Salmon. Some people pronounce it salmon. Who pronounces it salmon? I don't. It's pronounced salmon. S-A-L-M-O-N. Almond. How people pronounce it. She's saying that you shouldn't pronounce it almond. You should pronounce it almond. Salmon, almond. See what I'm saying? You're getting rid of the all in there? People say mischievous. Mischievous. How do you pronounce mischievous? It's mischievous. Mischievous, according to this person. Etc. Etc. People pronounce it etc., which drives me nuts. And it's not espresso, and it's not ask me a question. Etc. is what it is. It's not espresso, it's espresso. Espresso, not espresso. Let's see what else. Well, she says that some people say specifically as they say pacifically, but it's specifically. I don't have a problem with that. Some people say they say ax instead of ask. I get that. No, you say ask. And finally, how to pronounce quinoa. It's not quinoa, although it looks like quinoa. It's quinoa. I'm not a big fan. A lot of people trying to force me to eat quinoa. I'm not a big fan. I really, it's great. It's healthy and it's all that crap and everybody wants you to eat quinoa. No, don't like it. Not a big fan. What's the drawer under your stove for? Any idea? This is so crazy. The drawer under your stove is a warming drawer. I don't care what stove you have. I don't care if it's old, new, whatever. If you have a drawer under your stove, it's a warming drawer. It's a warming drawer. Did you know that? No freaking idea. If you put something in your oven and you open that drawer and you feel the pots and pans down there, they're going to be a little bit warmer. Now, it is a warming drawer. It is merely meant to keep things warm that you've baked so you can present them on the table and they're all going to be warm at the same time. That's it. You can't cook anything down there. You can't keep it for an extended amount of time or you're going to get sick. But that's what it is. It is a warming drawer. So when you bake rolls, you put them in the warming drawer under your stove. It's not meant for pots and pans. Is it going to hurt the pots and pans? No, not really. But that's what it is. It's a warming drawer. I know. Isn't that stupid? I didn't know that. I've been cooking forever. I have been cooking forever. So silly. So silly. Here's some good news. What percentage of women don't want anything for Valentine's Day? And I love this because I hate Valentine's Day. Used to dig it, maybe to some degree. Not so much anymore. I don't like it. I don't go out on Valentine's Day. If I'm going to have my wife home for Valentine's Day, I'll do something romantic. I'll make a great meal. But nothing against restaurants. You make your money. But they do flights at different restaurants, and they're hard to get in, and it's just because it's Valentine's Day, and I hate that crap. I really hate that crap. And I really hate flowers, and I really hate jewelry. Jewelry I hate particularly. I hate diamonds and all this baubles and this bull crap. It's a line. It's a joke. Diamonds aren't rare. Everybody's got a diamond. Everybody you know has dozens of diamonds in their home. They're not rare, all right? They're not rare. De Beers Company keeps them artificially inflated. I hate Valentine's Day. Don't tell my wife that. 41% of women don't want anything for Valentine's Day. Okay. Here's some other things. 40% say the corniest thing you can do on Valentine's Day is serenade them. Yeah, that's... 21% say the corniest thing they can do is put rose petals on the bed. Who the hell does that anymore? If you have sexual relations that night, 43% don't want to try anything new. Women. 30 paper airplane struck Edward McIver. He contacted the resource officer after he was struck in the eye. The eye appeared to be very red, and that the science teacher and Florence Public School district trustee was upset because he recently had eye surgery. The student admitted he threw a paper airplane, didn't mean to hit the guy in the eye. The teen was then cited for third-degree assault and battery. This MacGyver, whoever this douchebag is, Edward MacGyver, should be ashamed because he's the adult in the room. This kid has been taken to the Georgetown Detention Center in South Carolina, released on bond. His first appearance in court is February the 14th. Shame on this teacher. Shame on this teacher. We've seen boy behavior being punished time in and time out all over the country. And this is sickening. Kid made a freaking paper airplane, actually hit the guy in the eye. So what? Get over it. Get over it. Honestly, disgusting. Disgusting. Let's move on before I leave the air tonight. I want to talk about Yordano Ventura. And again, I'm not close to Yordano Ventura. I watched him move to KC, and they won the World Series. It was a very, very wonderful time to live here. This is, it's a tragedy. It sucks. This kid was 25 years old. He died in the Dominican Republic. He came from the Dominican Republic. He quit school as a 14-year-old so he could be working a construction job to help his family make ends meet. He could throw the ball fairly quickly when he was young, and the Royals signed him, apparently. Signed him as a 16-year-old in 2008 for $28,000. Quit school when he was 14, like I said, and he was going to for construction. He was less than 6 feet tall. He threw baseballs in the mid-'80s, and there are a lot of kids who throw at 16 in the mid-'80s, but this kid showed some promise. That's it. I'm going to get into a little bit of his story in just a moment, but I first want to play a local TV report. I believe this is Fox News, Fox 4. No, it's KCTV5 on Yordano Ventura and the memorial that's going on at the K. And like I said, I'll share some more about this guy in just a couple of seconds. Here it is.
Alexis, this morning that memorial continues to grow. It began at 11 a.m. yesterday, and fans coming out here have left mementos remembering him, remembering the star pitcher that has helped the Royals grow to such success in the past few years. Of course, whenever they lay these things down, the hats, the messages, the flowers, the candles that have been relit this morning, of course, they're remembering the life he lived and all of the talent that's lost, while also trying to come to terms with what happened, trying to figure out exactly what led up to this deadly accident. We don't know a lot about what caused the crash. We're working to learn more. Investigators are looking into whether alcohol could have been involved. We do know that the roads in the Dominican Republic are notoriously dangerous, but we want to start out with a map showing the road where that deadly wreck happened. It's about 40 miles from Santo Domingo. Reports say Ventura was driving from one town to the other at the time of the crash. His white Jeep was badly damaged. Crews had to pull it upright so they could then tow it away. An unfortunate coincidence, too, this morning. Today marks 17 years since Chiefs linebacker Derek Thomas was in another terrible crash that left him paralyzed. He died weeks later from a heart attack at the age of 33. And, of course, Yordano Ventura's age, just 25 years old. Such a talent, but such a young life lost.
Yeah, it sucks. That's all you can say, a 25-year-old man. Here's a little bit more from Royals manager Dayton Moore about the passing of Yordano Ventura.
This guy worked extremely hard. Our last conversation, I spoke to him right before Christmas. And he told me that he's going to win 18 games, and 10 of them are going to be complete games. Everybody has touched Ventura, Yordano in some way along the way, helping develop him and grow as a person.
This, and people die. All right, people die. And obviously it's not as important to you as somebody close to you dying. But it's sad because he was really just becoming the pitcher that he could have been. He was a future Hall of Famer, for sure. They're talking about retiring his jersey number. That's what they want to do. But this, according to J.J. Piccolo, the Royals assistant general manager, he says that he was a skinny, scrawny kid. A couple of scouts thought he'd be he had a good working arm, a quick arm, sort of arm that you'd look for as a scout. That was it. He really didn't throw hard at first. Then overnight he did. This is according to MLB. When he was 16, he weighed 130 pounds, threw 85 miles an hour. But he had the thirst for baseball. By the end of his first year, the baseball was approaching 90. When he was 19, after eating some of that American food, as he often told his teammates, he was 160, throwing 95. When he was at 20, his fastball was approaching 100 miles an hour. That's rare air. That's rare air. That was a miracle, but it wasn't the miracle. A breathtaking fastball. As every baseball fan knows, is only part of the dream. Every organization has a minor league pitcher who can throw hard. There are so many other things that a pitcher needs. He must control the fastball, throw strikes. He must command the fastball, which is harder because it means throwing the right kinds of strikes out of the middle of the plate. And then there's something else, too, something harder to describe. He must love to compete, love to be at the center of things. Salvi. Love it so much that he never stops trying to get better. Yordano Ventura was born with that gift. Unfortunately, he died with that gift. And with that died what could have been one of the better Major League Baseball pitching stories in the history of baseball. We'll never know. Baseball America 2013 nicknamed Lil Pedro because of his combination of size and velocity. Ventura had a fastball that sits at 94 to 97 and reached 102. Despite his small stature, Kansas City hopes he can fill one of those holes in their big league rotation. And then 2014, he was there in Kansas City, 23 years old. full of life and hunger and a sense of destiny. Everyone immediately called him Ace because of Ace Ventura, I guess. His first game that year, he threw 6 shutout innings against Tampa Bay. 2.5 weeks later, he threw 8 shutout innings at Baltimore. I remember that game. And then 5 shutout innings against Toronto. Few people around baseball thought the Royals were any good, and so few people around baseball paid much attention. And then they went on to win the World Series. It's sad. And I'm saddened by the thought of it. It's a 25-year-old man, and these things happen, right? They remind us of the fragility of life. And I'm twice his age, and I'm grateful that I have this life, and that's where I am right now. Not meaning to wrap things up on a melancholy note, but that's what I'm going to wrap it on tonight. I want to thank you for watching the podcast. The audio podcast will be posted tomorrow on this website if you want to hear the podcast of it. In the meantime, thank you and God bless you for listening. I greatly appreciate it. Make sure to check out this Facebook page if you would. Like some of the posts if you get a chance. Share it with friends. It is, of course, Facebook at Rob Carson Show. I have another blog, which is Rob Carson's Table, which is about food. If you want to write me, I'd love to hear from you. It's carsonontheradio@gmail.com, carsonontheradio@gmail.com. And if you want to check me out on Twitter, it's just Rob Carson. That's all it is. In the meantime, have a glorious rest of your day, and thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next time.
Thanks for listening to The Rob Carson Show. Friend him on Facebook at Carson Show, on Twitter at Rob Carson, and on Instagram, I think Facebook and Twitter are enough for now. We'll see you soon. Thanks for listening to The Rob Carson Show.